So what is going on, everyone? This is Fabi here, and today it's all about the iPhone 11. More specifically, we are going to review this bad boy and we are going to determine whether or not it's worth it to upgrade from the iPhone 10. So first of all, the design of this phone, you can see not much has changed, but this is the non-pro version, so we have two cameras just like on the iPhone 10. The difference being that one of the cameras is not a telephoto camera anymore, it's an ultra-wide now, so this is pretty cool. It lets you capture those really ultra-wide shots with a lot of things in frame. It does distort a little bit towards the extremities, but it's not that bad, and it does give it a really nice effect to it. So it's pretty cool. We do have the Apple logo now moved over to the center of the phone, and we do have some regulatory signs on the bottom, but these are pretty invisible. I know they're not in the American version, but in Europe they still have to show these, but they really don't stick out, so that's really cool in my opinion. Other than that, this is just like the iPhone XR when it comes to dimensions. Size-wise, it is a little bit heavier, I feel like, than my iPhone 10, but it is bigger, so it doesn't bother me that much. I do like the fact that they don't obsess with thinness anymore. This phone is pretty thick now, but I do like it this way, and it's up for a good reason. I will talk about that a little bit later. Of course, we don't have any headphone jack here. We only have the lightning port. We have a SIM slot, and of course there's another eSIM inside. We do have the flash, the microphone, and that's basically it as far as design goes. Now on to why Apple makes phones. I don't think they're thicker, but not so thin anymore nowadays. That's because of the battery. Just like with the iPhone XR and the iPhone XS and so on, they tried to make the battery life better, and believe me, with the iPhone 11 the battery life is incredible. So you get 7 to 8 hours of screen on time doing regular browsing, text messaging, editing documents and things like that, which is really impressive to me. And all of this, of course, with Wi-Fi connectivity and 4G LTE when on the go. So this is really awesome. Compared to my iPhone 10, I mostly get around 5 hours of battery life. Those 2 hours to 3 hours of actually battery life do get you through those longer days. Now, I can't say that my iPhone 10 doesn't last me a whole day, but there are days when I feel like 20 to 30% more battery life would be really awesome, and the iPhone 11 does just that. I just can't see myself killing this phone in a whole day, to be honest. The next strong point of the iPhone 11 is the cameras. Now, coming from the iPhone 10, the cameras were definitely not a disappointment, so I didn't think that cameras would really impress me, but to be honest, the ultra-wide camera really does spice things up a little bit. With the telephoto lens, it was interesting that you could catch more details in photos that had things at a far distance that you wanted to capture, but with the ultra wide you can capture so much more in a picture without having to step back. And a lot of the times you just can't step back because there's a wall behind you or something like that, and with the ultra wide you can really capture, let's say, people in photos or buildings. Everything looks just cooler, and I will show you this through some examples right now in the video. Another great thing about this camera is night mode. Now, a lot of phones until now used to struggle with night photography. A lot of cameras struggle with night photography. It's something pretty obvious. You have to capture light, and when there's no light you can't really capture it that well. So with the iPhone 11, what they did is introduce the night mode. What this does is basically it captures a long exposure photo just like you would on a DSLR, for example, but it does it a little bit more intelligently. So if you have things that move in your frame, they don't appear like shadows basically. So it knows when things move in the frame, and it basically freezes them into place, and it only captures light from things that don't change their position while it does its long exposure shots. So if there's a background which doesn't change around, that will be brighter, of course. And it's pretty intelligent. Even if you move your hand a little bit and you're shaking, it's still going to capture a nice and crisp photo, which is really something I didn't expect, and I was really curious to check out basically. Also, something that is really Apple-like and that I appreciate is the fact that you can't really notice a difference between the two cameras when it comes to colors, when it comes to exposure and things like that. When you change from one camera to the other, it's really undiscernible, and that's really cool. That's really something that other phones haven't been able to do, as far as I've seen in other reviews. And also, when you're going from one camera to the other in videos, it's really smooth, it doesn't jitter, it doesn't look like you're really changing cameras, which is really cool, because if you see that transition, it really takes you out of the video or whatever it was that you were trying to capture. Now, something that I'm not really a fan of is that you can't take night shots or night mode shots with the ultra wide camera, but I do understand that there's some limitations there. The ultra wide camera doesn't have optical image stabilization, so that obviously would have been pretty complicated to pull off. And another pretty minor caveat for me when it comes to the cameras is the front camera. It does really well when there's a lot of light, but when there's low light, it really tries to smooth out everything, so it eliminates the noise, but it also eliminates a lot of the details, and that's really apparent sometimes. With my iPhone X, I can see a lot of noise when there's no light and I'm trying to take a selfie, but at least the detail is still there, and I just like it better than the... It almost looks like a beauty mode thing on the iPhone 11, but this only happens in really low light situations, so it's not really something I would stress over. But I just wanted to say that it's something to take into consideration. Another thing with the front camera is the fact that it also captures a wider shot right now, so the field of view of the front camera is a little bit wider, and that's pretty cool as well. It goes hand in hand with the ultra wide camera on the back of the phone. I really do like it. Going on to performance, I always like to talk about performance because I'm a geek at heart, so it's something that comes natural to me. But with the iPhone 11, there's really not that much to talk about. It's just a great all-around phone. It moves great. There's no lag. There's no discernible lag when you're trying to open apps, when you're trying to switch through apps. It has enough RAM for what you need to do with it. Yeah, you can look at the specs and you can say that it's lower spec than Android phones, but it really doesn't matter because the Apple chip team has really got this thing on lockdown, and they know what they're doing, and the A13 Bionic chip is really good. So comparing it to the iPhone X, you can definitely see a difference when it comes to loading apps, but then again, I wouldn't say that my iPhone X is slow right now, so as long as you don't have them both side by side to compare them, you would say that both phones are fast enough for whatever you have to do, so there's really not much to complain about here with both phones. Apple really doesn't have problems with performance at this point in time, and that's really good. Now, we've talked about all of these things that make this phone really compelling, but there's one thing that really seals the deal when it comes to the iPhone 11, and that's the price. The price you pay for this is $699, of course, and that's a really good price for this phone, I would say. If you're coming from the iPhone X, this phone will be bigger than the iPhone X, so that's also something that I definitely appreciate. I wish the iPhone X was a little bit bigger. You have two cameras. Now the trade-off is you have to give the telephoto lens for the ultra-wide lens, but I feel like that's not too bad of a trade-off. You get much better battery life, better performance, a sleeker, nicer design, and the only major difference between these two, or the only drawback, is the fact that this is an LCD screen. Now, this is not a deal breaker for me. It's you can definitely notice that the blacks are not as true as on the OLED screen on the iPhone X, but again, when it comes to price, there's a $300 difference, and you really have to think about it, because I don't think that an OLED screen at this point in time is worth $300 for the average consumer. Now, when it comes to my own phone, I would probably pick the iPhone 11 Pro just because it has the third camera, and I do like the telephoto lens because I have a specific use case for it, so that's really important to me. But to most people, I think that this phone is the much better deal, and I think that in the end this will sell better because it's just priced at that sweet spot, at least for Apple phones, that they really haven't hit in the last 2 or so years. So this is really a good deal for this price, and again, there's no major compromises apart from the screen, and even that is not bad at all. Like, this is not the MacBook Air 2015 screen that we used to have, which was really bad. This really is almost on par with the iPhone X and the iPhone XS. The brightness is really good. You can't see pixels So people that say that you can see pixels, I would say that they're nuts. As long as you're not looking at the phone like this, and even looking at it like this, I can't see pixels, you're just not gonna see pixels, so that's not an issue. Now, as a conclusion, is this phone worth it? It depends. As long as you're coming from an iPhone 10 or earlier, I would say that it is worth it, and it's an upgrade that is going to last you at least 2 to 3 years without any issues. If you're coming from the iPhone XS, I don't think that this upgrade is for you. You'd better wait until next year. Maybe they're coming with a newer design, maybe they're coming with 5G, but don't be one of those guys that always waits for the next new thing. This phone really is in that sweet spot as far as pricing goes, and when 5G is going to roll, I don't think that they're going to be able to push out an iPhone with the same price point as this, because the chips are going to be pretty expensive. Only Qualcomm is going to produce them, I think, in the beginning, so they're really going to try and milk this 5G thing, and Apple's going to have to pay for it. And when Apple pays for it, the customer has to support those costs in the end. So this phone really is like one of the best phones, I think, of 2019. Definitely the best phone that Apple's has, or definitely the best lineup that Apple has produced. As always with Apple, you can't go wrong. It's just an all-around great phone. Even with their phone operating system, iOS, they're trying to make it less locked down, and they're trying to give you more options, more possibilities. As far as I'm concerned, shortcuts is really awesome. The fact that you can program automations to trigger when you touch an NFC tag is really cool. And so you have all of these things that you didn't have on iOS before, and you know, a lot of the things that would shock Android people. For example, you can connect to SMB servers. You can do a lot of powerful things. You can run Python scripts on it. You can even run Python scripts through Siri. So a lot of things have changed with iOS, and I really think that the iPhone 11 is a good phone if you want to give iOS a try. It really is like a complete package all around now. Anyways guys, thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more videos, stay tuned. I'm going to try to make some more car videos in the future. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you in the next video, and stay tuned for more. If you like this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It always helps me out. Stay tuned for more. Peace out guys. Peace.